Well, hello, thank you for joining me today again on the Church History Trail. And where we are is we're at Corrick Abbey and Old Graveyard. And you can see there the gate's probably as old as the Abbey. But I want to talk to you about the Campbell family who are buried here. I'm going to show you their grave last. And the Campbells were minor landlords here. They owned some land and they also rented land from major land owners. They lived in Agglane House near Plumbridge village, and they lived in the house until at least 1876. Now, the house was eventually dismantled and re-erected in the Ulster-American Folk Park near Omagh. Now, the family claimed kinship with the Earls of Argyll, the Campbells, and of course you had the Argyll Rising in 1685, which was a disaster for the Campbells, with the Earl of Argyll, Archibald Campbell, actually being executed by King James II. Now, there are two plaques made of stone above the front door of the Campbell house at the Folk Park. One is the name of Hugh Campbell, and it was him who built the house in 1786. It says Hugh Campbell built this house in the year of our Lord 1786. And then the other one says Most Noble Duke of Argyll, of course, connecting the family to the Dukes of Argyll. But I want to talk to you about this grave here, this pinnacle, because this is the grave of the Reverend Samuel Black of Corrick Presbyterian Church. And it says, an affectionate remembrance of the Reverend Samuel Black, who departed this life 5th of March 1900 in the 50th year of his ministry in Corrick Presbyterian Church. And so there's other writing here that you can pause and have a wee read of. But there's a field near the burying ground which was once used as a venue for annual picnic outings from the nearby Corrick Presbyterian Church. And there's also a wee monument, a wee plaque of the Reverend Samuel Black in that church. And you can see the latest burials here. And this is Anne Elizabeth Black. She was buried here in 2018. So you've got from the Reverend Samuel Black, 1900, up to this lady here in 2018. So that's 118 years of burying here, which is incredible. So that's the grave of the Reverend Samuel Black. Now, I'm going to show you the abbey, or at least what's left of the abbey, the old abbey, and this is it. So this is Corrick Abbey. And it's thought that the first use of the site as a religious site may have actually been around 560 AD when Columba founded a monastery and centre of learning here. Now, it's also thought that around 1465, Corrick Abbey was founded by the Third Order Regular of Franciscan Friars. And the abbey ceased from functioning, of course, due to the desolation of the monasteries. But you can see it's very well overgrown, unfortunately. You can see a Gothic window there, which you will get a better view of when we go around the front. But there's actually graves in here, believe it or believe it not. So the east wall there, you can see, it's got the original Gothic window. And so you will see that very shortly. Now, Hugh Campbell was born around 1669. He was the original. And it's his first name on the stone slab. There's two stone slabs there, one on top of the other one, of the Campbell grave. So he died on the 27th of July 1756, and two of his sons are buried here, John and Andrew. Andrew died on the 21st of December 1796, and John had three sons, Hugh, Andrew and John. And you can see a grave here, again in connection with the Corrick Church, Presbyterian Church. It says, erected by the congregation of Corrick Presbyterian Church in memory of Robert Gemmell, I think that is, died 15th of April 1982, so it's a modern grave, aged 92 years, and his sister Isabella died 2nd of November 1989, and she was 97 years. So I'm going to show you the window here. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely fantastic. Look at that. My goodness. Bit of history here, folks. You can see a lot of holes there. It's like someone took a shotgun and sprayed it. Or a machine gun, rather, and sprayed it. There you go. Now, one of John's sons, Hugh, was born around 1736 and he died on the 2nd November 1810. And Hugh married twice. Of course, this is the same Hugh who built the Campbell house, Ackleane House, in 1786. And Hugh's first wife was Catherine Denny, and his second wife was actually Elizabeth Buchanan, who was a relative of James Buchanan, the 15th President of the United States. So, massive history here, folks, with America. And of course, he was president from 4th of March 1857 to the 4th of March 1861. So you can see a date on that, 1780. Can't make out the name. Can't make out that one either, unfortunately. And that one is, well, it's John somebody. John somebody or other. But the date is 1810. Yeah, 1810. And of course, James Buchanan's successor to the presidency was none other than Abraham Lincoln, or Honest Abe as he is known. And that was just before the Civil War broke out. So this is another set of graves I want to show you here. This is the McIlwain family, all these graves. And I want to mention this one in particular, because this is Andrew McIlwain. And Andrew was the ex-head constable of the Royal Irish Constabulary. And he died on the 14th of June, 1881, 61 years, as you can see. So I'm going to show you a few more of these graves, and you can pause the video if you want and have a wee read of them. Now, Hugh, that's the Hugh who built the house, had one son and 5 daughters by his first wife, Catherine, and only his son John is named on the headstone. And Hugh had 6 children by his second wife, Elizabeth Buchanan, 4 boys and 2 girls. And his second wife, Elizabeth, is also buried here in the Campbell plot. So I'm going to read this one out to you of the McIlwains, because this is Moses McIlwain, and Moses actually died at the age of 102, this one here, as you can see. So he was 102, he died on the 2nd of February 1879. And then that's the last one of the McIlwains. So 2 of Hugh's sons emigrated to America, and they were called Hugh and Robert. Now, the Campbell house, Ackleane, was actually the birthplace of Hugh and Robert. And Hugh was born on the 1st of January 1796, and he emigrated to the US of America, the United States of America, on board the Phoenix in June 1818. Now, after setting up business as a merchant in North Carolina, Virginia, he would eventually move to St. Louis in Missouri in 1859. And it's as if that tree wants to give you a wee hug. It's an amazing tree. Now, Robert, Hugh's younger brother, emigrated to America on board the Climax, where he worked as an assistant clerk in St. Louis, Missouri at the age of 18. Of course, he was a Presbyterian. And he was advised to go to the Rocky Mountains because of ill health, where he spent about 10 years, rising from clerk to brigade leader in the fur trade until finally he was a partner in his own firm. Now, Robert became a friend of, and he actually entered into partnership with William Sublette, and they developed the Rocky Mountain Fur Company. Of course, the Sublette family itself was descended from a French Huguenot family who emigrated to America in early 1700, and that's actually engraved there of the Campbells. Now, in 1833, William and Robert founded Fort William, and they also founded another Fort William in Wyoming in 1834, and it famously became known as Fort Laramie. Among Robert's companions were Jim Bridger and Kit Carson, two well-known Western film names, of course, and Robert Campbell had many adventures in the Rocky Mountains, and he escaped an ambush of the Blackfoot Indians in 1832, and he carried his injured partner, Sublette, to safety, and then he rejoined the fight during the Battle of Perry's Hole between the fur trappers and the Blackfeet Indian tribe of eastern Idaho. So he was quite a character. Now, the famous Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, was given a job by Robert as a riverboat pilot on one of Robert Campbell's steamboats. Of course, Mark would go on to write The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And in 1870, Robert attended a gathering in Fort Laramie to placate the Sioux chief, Red Cloud, to try and appease him. And during the American Civil War of 1861-1865, Robert was a pro-union moderate Democrat who was actually tolerant of slavery and discrimination against free blacks, believe it or believe it not. And he was also friendly with Ulysses S. Grant and William Tecumseh Sherman. So you can see the slabs here. This is the bottom slab. Now, the feet's on Hugh's name, unfortunately, but you can make it out a bit. If I can get the camera in, it says, if you can see the GH there, that's Hugh Campbell. So that was the original Hugh Campbell, born about 1669. Now, although Robert wasn't a soldier in the Union Army, he was made an honorary colonel in the US Army, and he did supply goods and transportation to the Union Army in the Mississippi Valley during the war between the states. Now, Robert Campbell's rise from fur trader to a leading capitalist paralleled the growth of St. Louis from a frontier town to a sophisticated metropolis. So this is the second Hugh Campbell, who was Robert's father. And during the famine years in Ireland, the two Campbell brothers, Hugh and Robert, sent a special shipment of flaxseed to help relieve the distress of the family's tenants. And this one, you can see Elizabeth mentioned here, Elizabeth Campbell, Hugh's wife, who built the house. Now, Robert made 2 trips back to Ireland to his former home near Plumbridge in March 1830 and in 1867. And in 1841, Robert Campbell married Virginia Jane Kyle of Raleigh, North Carolina. And that memorial there was actually put in place by Hugh Campbell. That's why it says St. Louis, USA. You can see the H. Campbell there, St. Louis, USA. So fantastic. So although Robert had 13 children, only 3 of them actually made it to adulthood, sadly. He was president also of the Merchants National Bank, St. Louis, and also president of the Bank of Missouri. And he also owned a gold mine, believe it or believe it not, in Mexico. And he and Hugh actually became partners. So Robert Campbell died on the 16th of October 1876 at his home at St. Louis, and he buried in Bellefontaine Cemetery in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, on the death of the last surviving son of his in 1938, the last surviving son in 1938, his estate of $2 million was distributed among 161 of his heirs in the USA, Canada, England, and Ireland. So there you go, folks. What do you think of that? Thanks for watching, and God bless.